people ask me why there's no book to Fancy's deck. And I actually wrote a book to it with the meanings, the base meanings. It's still on my computer. I didn't finish all of it. It's a lot of cards, a lot of work. But it was when I got halfway through the book that I realized that each of these archetypes, you can write a whole book on each one by themselves, just based on the experience. If you've been in the game for a minute, you know what I'm saying? And I say the best thing, the best book you can have with this is a journal, a blank book. And rather than doing readings sometimes, you'll find that there's a certain card that kind of draws your attention more so than the others at specific times. And to work through it some more. And Tantra was the card that came up for me. And what I mean by work with it is it's really a personal thing of how you work with it. It's going to speak to you in different ways. Like for me, this is probably the fourth rendition of Tantra in the last 2 years, but prior to that, she's got maybe 5 or 6 other pictures that I've done of her working with the energy. And I'm really peeling back layers to the meaning, you know what I mean? So there's no way I could really do a deck, a book about the deck, because I would have to revise it. And I say that because I like to get feedback on the deck from people from time to time. And some of the work that other people have been doing with certain cards, shit I would have never thought of, you know what I'm saying? Or an experience that I'm not privy to, whether it's because, it could be a myriad of slight differences and variations, gender, blah, 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 right? Age, time of when that card came up, whatever. But now this one speaks because it's larger than the usual ones. This might be the second largest one outside of her first one that I did. I'll just stare at this and I'll go into trance. And when I go into trance, especially like right before I go to sleep or something like that, or after a meditation, or just using it during meditation, I always get something different. And this one here is like an encapsulation of all the prior interactions, if you will, plus some extra shit, you know what I'm saying? And this one now, I'm going into trance. And what you have to remember about the deck itself is, it is a inner child deck. It was made in the spirit of the inner child. And what I mean by that is, a lot of these images were done just for the pure joy of doing it. Some of them, a lot of them I say, were my way of working through certain periods of my life. So it has both dynamics, it's not just something to heal with, but it's something to play with as well. Tantra is one of the 4 archetypes that I've created that are actually, real to me, what you would call, or what they would call, as far as society is concerned, imaginary friends who have been there from the beginning. And we have our own language, our own understanding. And at the same time, it's not all peaches and cream with them either. It's just like the Mayan calendar. When I was teaching the Mayan calendar, I was telling some of the people participating that you have to honor both the dark and the light. And with a religious kind of a mind or upbringing, at first that's kind of hard because we get into this whole thing of love and light, love and light. And yeah, absolutely. But it's like that Beatles song. There's a season for certain things. There's a time when that shadow is really more of a tool, just like the light is a tool. And it really boils down to your intention when using that tool. You could use it to harm somebody, and you could use it to heal somebody. So being that she is the element of fire, you can purify, but you can also burn some shit up. You feel what I'm saying? So you really have to be mindful of your intentions as well when you're working with the deck. It's not for the superficial. It's for the creative mind. And these are just examples that I brought to the forefront that I work with on a daily basis, basically. And it's to really inspire you whether you can draw or not. It doesn't really matter about the style of art that you use. It just has to be something that's close to your heart. It could be a recipe that you have that you make in certain situations, like food or something like that. Dance, singing, creating songs, stories, whatever. It really, there's no cap on it, really. It all depends on the individual. And this is why I didn't want the book, because from Jump Street, most people who get the deck anyway have already had at least an introduction to spiritual practices and whatnot. But it's meant to take the training wheels off and have you use your imagination. Because when I pull cards, and let's say a certain card comes out twice in different periods of time for different people, they never have the same meaning as it did the time before. They're really geared for the moment, and with other cards in combination, they paint a different story. So I didn't want people to get caught up in that base meaning, especially beginners, and have them think that this is the end all be all definition. There's plenty of wiggle room with this deck in the way that it can be utilized. And I wanted to make that more so the point than anything else. That it's really up to you what these meanings could be. I heard one brother say that some of the archetypes reminded him of his daughter. This one particular archetype, I believe it was like Sophia, reminded him of somebody close to him. So every time now he pulls that card, that's who he thinks of. He knows that reading is about that person. You understand what I'm saying? So now the deck becomes personal, and you can't predict that. You can't put that in the book. You know what I'm saying? And the other reason was because I wanted to encourage the true practitioner is going to take this and research the Mayan calendar, the destiny cards, the fairy realm, the quantum realm, dragons, the herbs, all these different avenues, if you will, of spirituality that I've come across throughout the years that have helped shape this whole deck. And it's meant to really root you in your creativity. and change your thinking that anything is possible if you put your mind to it and your heart is involved. You know, your intentions are pure of heart. We live in a time now where spirituality is becoming more and more commercialized, if you will, diluted in a lot of different ways to where the magic doesn't work because there's so many fingers and hands in the pot, so to speak. But the stuff that is most potent is what comes to you in that moment, that you ask a question or that you inquire or just work with the energy. And that revelation is for you and you alone. Some of us are gifted enough to where we can share that and it's relevant because we speak from a place of, it's not about the ego, you know what I'm saying? It's not about maintaining a certain schedule. You understand what I'm saying? Like I don't do readings every day at Friday at this time or all 12 signs. That's not my lane. And I'm fine with that, right? Because that's who I am. And through this, I hope it helps you find out who you are or find out more of who you are. Because there's levels to this. We're all in different spaces and places. So just as a first timer is a student to this deck, I'm still a student to the deck because it still speaks. It still holds mysteries to uncover, you know, questions that I have yet to formulate. And the better the question, the better the answer. So it's a really good way to fine tune that part of you, that intuition, you know, going off your gut feeling, your instinct, more so than the logical mind, because that's what I felt the book represented, more of the logical part, putting it in a box. And when you create these archetypes or characters, if you will, and you see it all over the place, you know, comic books, movies, this is nothing new. Cartoons, all your favorite cartoons, when you were a kid, there's a reason you liked those cartoons, because it spoke to that part of you. There was a bit of a remembrance there, something familiar, you know what I'm saying? Like when we had me and my homeboy Anwar, shout out to my boy Anwar Sadat, because we grew up together. He's one of the people who know me probably the longest as far as people that I know, especially early on. But we used to have, you know, G.I. Joe men, but we didn't have wars. We played football with them, you know what I'm saying? We would line them up and be arguing about who tackled who or whatever. But it would be football instead of a war. And that's like the deck, you know, you use it for whatever. You make it a part of yourself and what you're here to do. And in that regard, you become the book. You start to catalog the experience. And there's going to be, you know, a point where you don't even need the deck so much because you've grown out of it. And that's perfectly fine. You know, you just pass it on to the next person. And whatnot. But at the very least, you could use it, just sit it on a coffee table, you know, when you have guests, and have it spark a conversation about a certain card and what it brings up. Art is a very, 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 very powerful medium to work with on your spiritual path, on your path in general. I'm gonna put a little white in there. But you know, the question came up not too very recently about why there's no book with it again, and I realized that there's always going to be someone new to the channel, to the deck, to my work, And even long after I've gone back home, ascended from this realm, I still want that to be the selling point, if you will. To not put things in a box. To really allow your imagination and creativity dictate the terms and conditions and define the reality that you want to create. So it just becomes a tool to your own inner mechanisms. And at the very least, maybe just some inspiration to help you move forward in your own creative endeavors. That it can be done, because it has been done before me, and I know it's going to be done after me. But you remember that's a personal journey. You don't have to share it with anybody. You know what I'm saying? But some of us are coming back here to do exactly that. So that's the session today. I'm gonna let it dry. It's almost finished. I gotta let some areas dry, but the conversation continues. You know what I'm saying? I'll go back into a meditation. It's something about the eyes on this one that kind of pull me in. You know what I'm saying? So I want to make sure that that pull is at full strength. But I'll talk to you guys later.